Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And it's our history unit for the month of November. And today we're going to talk about weather forecasting, which means someone tries to tell us what the weather is going to be like in the future. And sometimes, of course, we get mad at weather forecasters because their forecast was all wrong. But we must admit that they're doing a much better job than weather forecasters did in the past.
I still think they get a lot of this forecasting wrong. So some days, I'll carry around that heavy umbrella because I looked at the forecast and it said, it's definitely raining 100% all day. And then there's no rain. And I just think, it's fine if you don't have to carry around much stuff in your bag, but I usually have a lot of stuff. So, we're going to talk about how weather forecasting has just actually been invented. It's kind of a new thing and kind of the stages and what they went through. First of all, though, guys, we're going to read through today's lesson.
Observing the ever-changing landscape of the sky is a fascinating exercise in understanding the forthcoming weather. As we gaze upward, the clouds appear to be a lively canvas, their shapes transforming in harmony with the winds. Long before the arrival of modern science, our ancestors made early attempts at predicting the weather by using natural signs such as cloud formations, star patterns, which served as seasonal guides, and animal behavior. For instance, they believed low-flying birds indicated an approaching storm. Primitive as these methods might have been, they marked the beginning of weather forecasting. Many other scientific discoveries propelled weather forecasting forward for hundreds of years. These included the invention of temperature, wind speed, and pressure devices that enabled humans to collect weather data. Had it not been for the telegraph, however, the development of weather forecasting would not have been so rapid. It was employed by Vice Admiral Robert Fitzroy of the British Royal Navy, disturbed by the frequent shipwrecks near Britain's coast, where 7,402 vessels tragically perished, causing more than 7,000 casualties from 1855 to 1860. After the sinking of the Royal Charter in 1859, Fitzroy was authorized to utilize data from 15 different locations via telegraph and issued timely storm warnings. This innovative use of the telegraph facilitated rapid data exchange over vast distances, making systematic weather forecasting possible. As the 20th century unfolded, the evolution of weather prediction was stimulated by the establishment of equations deciphering the dynamics and migration of atmospheric systems. These advances were further complemented by technological innovations such as weather satellites, radar systems, and automated weather stations, which refined data collection and analysis methods, thus boosting the accuracy of weather forecasts. Therefore, the next time you witness a cloud transforming in the sky, remember that we're not just looking at interesting shapes, but also gaining an insight into what tomorrow's weather has to offer.
Welcome back, guys. Let's take a look at this title first. You'll often hear this title spoken or said, at least part of the title, come rain or shine. Come rain or shine means no matter what happens, we're going to do something or we're excited to do something. It doesn't have to be outside. It could be come rain or shine, I'm moving next year. So come rain or shine just means I don't care what happens, nothing will prevent or stop me from doing something. It's kind of a cute title for our article today because we actually are talking about weather. So weather forecasting through the ages. How did they actually try to predict the weather long, long ago?
That's what we're going to talk about today. And I suppose that sometime in the past, they didn't even know what weather was. It just would rain one day, it would be really hot, and these people had no idea why this was happening.
Yeah.
But now we know quite a bit more. We understand about air currents and the atmosphere and moisture and evaporation and things like that. So we've got a better idea. But still, there's a long history of weather forecasting, which we're going to talk about today. So let's take a look at the first paragraph. It says, observing the ever-changing landscape of the sky is a fascinating exercise in understanding the forthcoming weather. So, yes, indeed, sometimes we lay on our backs on the top of a hill and look up at the clouds. And usually, if they're big cumulus clouds, we can see images in them. Oh, that looks like an elephant.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks like a story from the Bible or something like that. But it's also an exercise in understanding the weather. If you understand clouds and you watch their movement and you look at other parts of the sky, you probably know what the weather's going to be like very soon.
Right. I love to look at the clouds. Sometimes they're really like crazy shapes. I especially love the clouds in Taiwan. You have more clouds than I grew up with. I was raised in a state that usually just had blue skies every day. We hated it. I love clouds and I love the rain. But now, it's just the opposite. But you guys have great clouds, and so I'll often take out my phone and actually take pictures of the clouds. On one of my social media accounts, I just have this beautiful picture of clouds in Taiwan. So, yeah, I love that stuff. I wanted to mention forthcoming here just means something that's upcoming, an event that's going to happen soon. So if you're gazing upward, you'll likely see some of these clouds. They appear to be a lively canvas. Canvas here is that really coarse material that a lot of painters use, artists who are painting with oil. They'll often use a canvas to put their paint on. So that's the canvas here. So they appear to be a lively canvas. The shapes are always transforming in harmony with the winds. Yeah, the winds will push those clouds around, changing their shape.
Yep, they will be transformed, and they're going along with the winds. The different directions that the winds are blowing will determine the direction of the clouds and what their shapes are. And if you understand that stuff, of course, you know what's happening. Of course, if you can guess the clouds in the United States, in Tornado Alley, for example, which extends from Texas up to Minnesota, you will be able to know if a tornado is coming or not. That doesn't happen as often as people think, but again, you're looking at that lively canvas. You're looking at the sky as if it were a painting, and you see those shapes of those clouds changing, moving in different directions along with the winds. Now, in the next paragraph here, it says, long before the arrival of modern science, our ancestors made early attempts at predicting the weather by using natural signs such as cloud formations, star patterns, which served as seasonal guides, and animal behavior. So, of course, nowadays we have modern science with our instruments and our satellite images and things like that. So our ancestors, people who lived hundreds and thousands of years ago, tried to predict the weather. They tried to guess what the weather was going to be like in the future, and they used natural signs such as cloud formations. So they probably saw some patterns in the clouds over time. They noticed that, hey, these kinds of clouds appear before it rains, and these kinds of clouds disappear after it rains, and that means we're going to have nice weather for several days, if not several weeks. So they would look at those natural signs like cloud formations or star patterns, which would be patterns of stars in the sky, and those stars also served as seasonal guides. As you know, as the Earth goes around the sun, and the Earth tilts on its axis, it changes the arrangement of the stars in the sky over the year. So they would look at that and realize, oh, this is now the time when certain kinds of weather patterns or weather phenomena happen, and they could base these predictions on the patterns of the stars, although the constellations don't really change. It's just when they rise and when they set and things like that. And also they could guess by animal behavior. I've heard that before, like some animals will behave a certain way if an earthquake is coming, or if it's going to rain, if there's going to be a tornado, or if a volcano is going to erupt.
Or even the tsunami. They've seen animals actually go up to a higher elevation before the tsunami hits. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. Natural signs are quite miraculous, I think. So here's an example. It says, for instance, they believed low-flying birds who are kind of flying lower than normal, that these birds would indicate an approaching storm. Yeah, the birds aren't stupid, so they sense something and they get lower so that if they need to, they can land quickly so that they're not hurt by any rain or even hail, which is frozen water coming from the sky. So primitive as these methods might have been, they mark the beginning of weather forecasting. Primitive refers to things that are very old. I use primitive when I'm talking about things that were around before we even could write history books, right? So primitive behavior would be like a caveman, that sort of thing. So primitive, these methods were primitive because they weren't based on any real in-depth science. It was just natural signs around them. It was nature trying to help them, or if they paid attention to it. But long ago, they would actually think that the weather was based on these angry gods in the sky. So actually, at this point, they've actually made some progress.
Indeed, but I must say that maybe some of these primitive methods may have worked from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
You never know.
Sure.
And moving on now to the third paragraph, it says, many other scientific discoveries propelled weather forecasting forward for hundreds of years. So we've got other scientific discoveries that were made over the centuries, and they propelled weather forecasting forward. They helped improve weather forecasting. Here, to propel just means to push something forward. To cause something to move in a particular direction. This would be related to what you see on an airplane, the propeller, which are like fans on the wings of airplanes. When they spin, they propel the plane forward so that it can fly.
That's right. When I think of propel, I imagine some of these kids who have skateboards who are using their leg to give them some motion, and that they're propelling their skateboard forward with some of their own energy, and that's how those go forward. We also will often hear about rocket-propelled military weapons, like rocket-propelled grenades or something like that. So it's being driven forward, and many of these scientific discoveries in weather forecasting happened after quite a long time. We're going to talk about that. But someone who's always willing to help propel our English skills forward is our Chinese teacher. Let's listen now.
听众朋友大家好，我们今天要带大家来看一下天气哦，不是要看天气啦，其实是要看天气预报，它到底是怎么样进步成真的可以去预报呢？天气预报它的历史跟它的进步是怎么样变成今天这样子的天气预报？或许有些人说天气预报最不准了，说下雨就是不下雨，说没下雨呢，突然就会下雨。好，我们来先看一下，其实在过去的历史当中啊，古人就会一直不断的看天空。那这个看天空啊，看到云啊，看到风啊，其实它就有隐含所谓的天气气象的变化的意思。在第一段当然是一个引入啦，不过第一段第二句我们在这边啊看到一个分词构句哦，你说哪里？在逗点之后其实少的是 and， 后面本来有一个动词 transform 加 ing 有没有？这里的 ing 啊，之所以变成 transforming， 之所以变成动词 ing， 就是因为逗点之后的 and 省略，因为前面主词我们看到的是云 the clouds， 云好像是画布一样诶，逗点，而它们的形状会改变，当然是跟风一起转变咯。所以古人就会去这样子观星啊，观天气啊，看云的形状，甚至看星象，还有一些动物的行为。在第二段就告诉我们，我们的 ancestors， 我们的祖先怎么样来预测天气呢？刚刚提到的 natural science 就出现在第二段第一句的地方 ，such as 后面就很重要啦，我们才能够了解历史，像 cloud formations 云怎么组成的啊 ，star patterns。星象就是所谓的一些季节的指南，还有所谓的动物行为。你说老师什么动物行为？难道是青蛙全部一夜这个跳出去某个城镇就是要大地震吗？对，有一点类似这样子的感觉。不过呢，在第二段第二句就直接举例子啦，因为以前古人他们就知道说，鸟飞得很低的时候，应该就是要下暴雨咯。以前小时候有听过妈妈讲，你看那个蜻蜓飞得很低的时候，应该就是要下雨了，可能跟气压有一点关系。好，所以在这边的第二段第二句这个 instance 就很重要，可是第三句还更重要，第三句啊根本就是一个句型，如果不说你不认识的话，你还真的不知道它到底在讲什么。一开始出现了一个形容词 primitive 很原始， as these methods might have been。这到底是什么东西啊？这个 as 后面有动词，所以它是连接词，是 when because 还是如同好像吗？没有。读者啊，请注意，这是一个比较少用，但其实也会用很重要的句型。它是 as 取代 although，as 当成 although 的一个句型。也就是说，这里的 as 其实句子原本讲的是虽然。好，句子先还原哦。Although 虽然 these methods might have been primitive， 可能呢当时是很原始的。但是它们却标志着天气预报的开始。它是一个让步子句的倒装。这个让步子句的倒装就是要强调原始这个形容词 primitive。但是 although 放在这边就会很怪啊，所以就直接拿一个 as 来取代。所以再说一次哦，这边要特别打星号，用荧光笔哈。这是一个 although 让步的倒装句型，但是我们把 although 用 as 来取代了，把后面虽然那个让步的什么形容词或者是副词整个调到句尾。虽然是那么原始，但是它真的就是一个天气预报的开始。所以后来呢，其他的这个经过了好多年之后，有其他的一些科学发现啊，就推动了这样数百年来的一些天气预报。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. It's our history unit, and we are taking a look at the history of weather forecasting, how people over time have tried to predict or guess what the weather is going to be like. Not the climate, the weather. So the weather would be a day-to-day thing. Is it going to rain today? Is it going to snow? Ooh, looks like a typhoon's coming. Well, weather forecasting is very important. Sometimes it's just important because you don't want to get drenched out in the rain. You know how Taiwan has those very sudden storms where the heavens just open, the clouds open, and all that rain just comes down so fast that umbrellas of no use to you. Well, weather forecasting isn't always that accurate as we know today, but it's better than what we used to have, which was people really just relying on natural signs around them. It can be helpful, though, but you have to be paying attention.
And we did talk about some early methods of predicting the weather, cloud formations, star patterns, animal behavior like low-flying birds. But nowadays, we've had some scientific discoveries which have propelled weather forecasting forward. And these included the invention of temperature, wind speed, and pressure devices that enabled humans to collect weather data. You could also say data, that just means information or statistics. And we've got the invention of temperature devices, wind speed devices, or instruments, we could say, and air pressure devices to measure barometric pressure. And again, we've got temperature devices, which would be a thermometer. They can measure the temperature. And by looking at patterns in temperature, you can probably predict the future of weather conditions. We've got wind speed as well. And we've got pressure devices or instruments that measure air pressure or barometric pressure. And by measuring that pressure, you can tell if a high pressure system is coming or a low pressure system is coming. And there are various weather conditions that go along with those different conditions. And these instruments or these devices have enabled humans to collect weather data. So they get all this information and they look for patterns, and therefore in the future they can predict what will happen.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, but even with all these more modern inventions, it's still tough sometimes for these weather forecasters to get that forecast just right on the nose or perfect. So had it not been for the telegraph, however, the development of weather forecasting would not have been so rapid. What's the telegraph? Well, it's a system where you send messages over a long distance. It can be either by electricity or by radio signals. You'll hear sounds in movies or TV shows, and it'll go beep, 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 beep.
Right.
And the people that are on the receiving end can then decipher or decode those signals, and it turns into English or whatever language a country is using. And so that was a way they communicated a lot, especially before we had the phone. That was the only way to send messages long distance quickly.
Yep, the telegraph has been around for quite some time, and of course they send messages using Morse code. I think people still study Morse code just in case traditional methods of communication break down, and you can use shortwave or something like that to communicate with people all over the world.
I would if I was on a ship, if you were a sailor or a captain, I would learn Morse code.
Well, of course, messages were sent from the Titanic by telegraph to let people know that they were sinking. But later on, of course, they could use radio signals. And, of course, without the telegraph, the development of weather forecasting would not have been so quick or so rapid. So, yes, we did need the telegraph in order to send that information over long distances. We've got an example here. It was employed or used by Vice Admiral Robert Fitzroy of the British Royal Navy, and he was disturbed by the frequent shipwrecks near Britain's coast, where 7,402 vessels tragically perished, causing more than 7,000 casualties in just a 5-year period from 1855 to 1860. Now, in the Navy, of course, they have different ranks. You've got admiral, you've got vice admiral, you've got commander, etc. And so this guy was ranked quite high, vice admiral, not the admiral, but still pretty high up there. And he thought it was disturbing. Yeah, all those ships are sinking. And we don't have any accurate way to know the reasons why that happens, because these storms just come up out of nowhere and lots of ships perished, or they sank, or they were destroyed. Perish is often used to talk about something dying or someone dying. We could say 500 people perished in the snowstorm. But in this particular case, we're talking about vessels or ships. They were destroyed, they perished, and then we had 7,000 casualties, which means people were either killed or injured.
Yeah, it can be either, right? So casualties, you sometimes need to ask another question, like, of those 7,000 casualties, who was actually killed and who was severely wounded or injured? So after the sinking of the Royal Charter in 1859, Fitzroy was authorized or given permission to utilize data from 15 different locations via telegraph and issued timely storm warnings. To utilize just means to make practical use of something, and he wanted to make sure that things improved in the future. So he got all of this data from different places and then tried to issue or send out timely storm warnings. Timely just means in good time before it's too late.
And this innovative use of the telegraph facilitated rapid data exchange over vast distances, making systematic weather forecasting possible. So it's an innovative use of the telegraph. It's new, it's novel, it had not been done before. And to facilitate just means to make something easier. And we had rapid information exchange over vast distances, and therefore they were able to predict the weather with more accuracy. Now, here in the next paragraph, it says, as the 20th century unfolded, as we got into the 1900s, the evolution of weather prediction was stimulated by the establishment of equations deciphering the dynamics and migration of atmospheric systems. Evolution just means the slow change of something over time. And so weather prediction just got better and better over the years. And they used equations, which would be mathematical formulas, to interpret all that data and come up with some predictions for the weather. If you decipher something, you basically figure out what it means. You've got all this code, all this information, and you need to figure out what it means. The dynamics, of course, refers to the different changing information. Also, the migration of atmospheric systems, how they moved around in the sky.
So these advances were further complemented by technological innovations such as weather satellites, radar systems, and automated weather stations. We've got a lot of new technology that we can use, and all these things refined the data they were collecting. To refine just means to make something even better, even more accurate, maybe even more pure if you're taking bad things out of it. Refined sugar is sugar that's been processed, so it's not raw anymore and hopefully is better. So let's take a look at this. This word complimented is not the compliment you're thinking of. It's not when I say, hey, Tom, I like your outfit today. This compliment just means it goes well with something else. And it kind of makes those two things even better together. So it can be more than two things. They were complimented by these technological innovations. An innovation is something new. It's a new idea, a new product, something that is improved upon something that was older in the past.
And we've got these innovations like weather satellites, radar systems, and automated weather stations. They refined the data collection. They made it better. And therefore, the next time you witness a cloud transforming in the sky, remember that we're not just looking at interesting shapes, but also gaining an insight into what tomorrow's weather has to offer. So yes, you might think of clouds in a different way now. You know that people do look at the clouds and try to predict the weather based on them, but meteorologists, weather forecasters will be able to interpret the data and information and be able to give us a fairly accurate prediction of how the weather's going to be for tomorrow, so you know if you can have your picnic or not.
I'm not sure we're ever going to be absolutely accurate in our weather forecasting, but it's kind of fun to see what's going to come along. I know that yesterday I thought it would rain, and it didn't. It was really sunny the whole day. So even the weather forecasting on my smartphone is wrong. Okay, guys, we're going to take one more break, listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to say goodbye.
其中一个就是温度啊，温度很重要嘛，还有风啊，还有什么我们刚刚说的压力啊，这些东西就很重要。所以我们刚刚从第二段看到的云的形状啊，还有星象啊，动物行为啊，接下来看到第三段，在第二句的地方出现 temperature 温度。Wind speed 风速的测量啊 pressure devices 气压的一些仪器，这个 pressure devices 后面带了一个限定用法关系子句，从 that 一直到句尾的地方，就会使大家可以去收集 weather data。那当然这个限定用法关系子句后面的第三句又更重要了，为什么？因为它是一个假设语气的倒装句。第三句先看一下 had it not been for the telegraph, however 好，其实这句话重点多耶，我们只要一看到 however 这个转折，感觉上就是好像有重点的意思，但是要先看懂这个句型，这是一个 if 省略的倒装句型，假设语气哦。原本的句子是 if it had not been for the telegraph，那这个 if it had not been for 是什么意思啊？中文翻成要不是，就是否定过去一件事情，或者是否定现在的一个什么东西。当时发明了电报，所以要不是因为当时发明了电报，我们看到的是 had PP 与过去事实相反， if 省略之后把助动词调到前面，所以出现的是if 省略假设语气的倒装 Had it not been for the telegraph, however 然而啊，其实真正的关键就是电报，后来整个天气预报才这么迅速的展开。好，我们就直接看第三段第六句咯。第三段第六句这边也有一个分词构句，逗点之后的 making 还原的话应该是 and made， 那当然这边的 and 用来连接的是前面的动词跟and 后面这个 made 这个动词。好，那最后面呢就提到啦，因为20世纪的展开，还有什么破译大气系统的动力学啊，迁移的方程式啦，总而言之就有很多其他的发明，后来就慢慢呢促进了天气预报的一种演进。当然还有一些技术的创新啊，还有数据分析啊，然后这个分析方法就会让这个气象预报比较准确。我们要着重在的是第四段第二句的地方，这里第四段第二句在句子很长哦，中间后面的地方有一个逗点的 which， 对不对？ which 到句尾我们可以先左右括号，不过我们要找一下 which 代替的是什么。which 代替的不是前面的 weather station 哦，因为 weather station 你一直往前走的话，会发现它前面有 such as， 像 weather station 它是被举例出来的实际例子，所以逗点之后的汇取真正指涉的先行词是 technological innovations， 是所谓科技的创新这些东西。后面的 such as 才是例如啊，什么卫星啊、雷达啦等等之类。所以在这边特别注意，第一，逗点之后的汇取有时候可以代替的是逗点前面整句话，但是有时候它的先行词会走远一点。例如在这里指涉的就是 technological innovations， 这样子的原因是因为后面有举出实际的例子，所以在这个汇取当中啊，尤其是带着逗点的汇取，大家要特别小心它文意的解读。好，所以下次啊，我们在看云变化的时候，有时候我们也可以预测看看，是不是有可能要下雨了，还是有台风呢？我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully if you're going hiking tomorrow, it won't rain cats and dogs, or at least the weather forecaster will be able to tell you how the weather's going to be. From all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
Hey, I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Thanks, bye.